This is the Body Talks with Vera, where we dive deep into movement, strength, and joy at every size. I'm Vera, your host, and each episode we're having real conversations with people who are redefining fitness, confidence, and what it means to truly live in our bodies. Whether we're talking powerlifting, nutrition, running ultra marathons, or radical self love, this is a space where every body has a story. So let's get into today's episode. I'm so excited to have Lanie on our show today. So, Lanie Bishop is an accomplished multidisciplinary athlete with over a decade of experience in pole dancing and competitive powerlifting, both as an athlete and as a volunteer. Lanie sees movement as a way to heal, to connect, and create lasting relationships with oneself and others. She is an ardent advocate of creating inclusive spaces for marginalized communities to enjoy movement and understands the structures that perpetrate harm and create barriers within the fitness and movement industry. In her spare time, Lanie is a perpetual student who just finished a postgraduate cert in sexual health and a streaming gamer who sometimes struggles with aiming. Welcome, Lainey.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm so good. I'm so glad you're here. How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm so excited to be here and actually get to chat with you.
I know. So we were just chatting a little bit before this, and me and Lainey have been following and chatting with each other for, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 years now online.
Oh, I think almost 6 actually, because
Oh my
I
God.
don't
Yeah, you're right. It was because this was pre-pandemic. This has been longer. Oh my goodness.
know.
Oh my God. I actually even went to Lainey's wedding virtually. And yet, this is the first time we're actually having a face-to-face conversation.
I think that's just how it is online. You meet these wonderful people and you connect and you're like, "I've never talked to you face to face before."
Yeah. So I'm so glad we finally are. And it's for this show. I would love for us to tell everyone listening and watching kind of your story and what first drew you into powerlifting and pole dancing.
Ooh, I always love this question. So I kind of had an unconventional way of getting into fitness. Like I'd always been active. My mom was always trying to get me into sport. I curled for years as a kid. I did track a lot. I was a huge like long distance runner, shot put, discus. And you kind of hit like college, university, and everything that you used to do kind of falls to the wayside. I was a big music kid, so I could keep going on with that because it was my arts option for my degree. But, I just really didn't like how my body was feeling. Like I was feeling really sluggish. I was tired all the time. You're staying up late all day and all night and you're eating stuff that doesn't really feel your body. And so I'm like, I'm going to start getting it back into fitness. And I really was looking for something fun and enjoyable. And I was running a lot. I was miserable. I hated running. Like the runner's high was never a thing that I ever experienced. I was doing 5Ks, 10Ks, and just was like, I'm doing it. I have shoes, I have shorts, I'm running. But it never really clicked that this is something I enjoyed. So I was kind of off and on seeing this guy, and we finally started like dating. And he's like, "Have you ever like thought of powerlifting?" I'd never heard of it. I'd seen it before. I used to take some burlesque and dance classes at the University of Alberta, and right across was the powerlifting room, and it was like a a stone cave and was blaring metal music, and I'm like, "That's cool. I don't think I'm cool enough to go in there and check it out." So finally this guy dragged me in there and was like, "Here's powerlifting in the 3 movements." And I was instantly hooked. I had like the powerlifter's high rather than the runner's high day
Yeah.
1. So like of course like the dopamine's going and you're like, this is giving me the feelings of like "Ugh." So I kept doing it. And of course that grew into me finally delving into my first competition, and the rest is kind of history, right? But with pole, it was really fascinating because my mom, who like background on my mom, really conservative, very religious. She's from the Philippines, so she's a lot strict. And she calls me up one day, and it was about a year after I'd started powerlifting, and she was, like, worried that I was gaining muscle, And she was like, "What's going on with my daughter?" And if you know anything about Asian moms, they're very body focused. They want the slim and trim kids, right? And I mean, granted, I was still very tiny at the time, was still kind of growing into my body and figuring out how movement and food and everything worked. But like she was like, "You're gaining weight." And I was like, whatever, it's probably muscle. And she said, "I have a coworker that started pole dancing and lost a lot of weight." And she said, "You should do more cardio." And, like, oh, mom, like cardio, like I was a runner, like I don't want to do it. But I had been looking into aerial hoop because I wanted to
Mm.
learn how to hula hoop, but also aerial hoop looked cool. And she said, it's the same thing. Just do it. And so for my birthday, she bought me a week of like a session of classes. And again, hooked, was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I have like no idea where my body is in space. And it was something that was missing from powerlifting. And so, you start with the very basic movements, right? You just start with like very basic, here's how you hold yourself up on the pole. Here is a movement around the pole, and here you're spinning. And as you go up in levels, you start to delve into the more like sexuality and the sensuality side of things. And it was like a match made in heaven. And I haven't looked back since.
Uh, I love that so much because also the fact that your mom was the one who got you into pole dancing. I love that. I love that so much.
It still shocks people because, like, if you meet my mom, she's very like, she's so strict on me, like, she loves my partner, loves him to death, but for me, she's, like, very, "Lady, Siggy, don't do that," very,
Uh,
very militant almost,
mm,
but then you're like, "Your mom got you into pole dancing and still thinks you're okay doing it?" To the point where she's like, "I saw people on Instagram do Make It Rain," and I was like, "Okay, mom, we gotta take this back, we need to talk about, like, the history of pole dancing," but she was, like, into it, and I'm like, "I'm into that, you're into that?" It's so not her, but it's also very her.
I love that so much. But that's so interesting that I think of because I've never done powerlifting, but me and you have met through the pole dance community.
Yes.
And that's where I really kind of discovered where I am in space and that proprioception that we kind of build, especially when it comes to movement. So I'm curious about that and how you didn't really have that in powerlifting. But I'm also just more curious, were there any similarities between that you have found between pole dancing and powerlifting?
Yeah, I mean, just to kinda touch on that proprioception, I think with powerlifting, it's a very rigid movement structure,
Mhm.
right? It's very one-dimensional, and so I think that a lot of powerlifters struggle with that, when they're put into other sports or other situations. Like pole dancing, there's an uprising of powerlifters moving into pole dancing, and you can see it where they're, like, realizing, "Oh, my body is in space in 3 dimensions now almost, right? Like, it's not just the up and down movements, it's the side to side, it's the angles, like yeah, it definitely changes their brains, and I love seeing
Yeah.
it 'cause the growth of them as an athlete is just, tremendous, right?
Yeah.
But kinda touching on your similarities, I think for a lot of people like me who are women or who are femmes, they definitely find that upper body is something that is missing. And so there's that kind of like same thing in pole where people are like, "Oh, my upper body's so weak." But I think the two meld together so beautifully because pole dancing increases your bench press and increases your stability in the squat and the uprightness of your deadlift. I find my bench press and a lot of my powerlifting movements have really strengthened things like my Aisha, like my inverts when I do them. Don't tell my pole mom. And I think there's so much crossover with the 2 cross-training wise, and I do find a lot of the cues that you have, so, like, tucking your pelvis, so common between the 2, but it's not something you would think of until someone cues you, right? Making sure that you have active shoulders. Those kinds of things carry over regardless, and I think when I started seeing that more and more, especially going through physio, going through rehab for the little injury type things going on, it really was like, yeah, these 2 sports are closer than anyone wants to admit.
That's so interesting because it really sounds like, for one, that doing both sports have made you very well-rounded as an athlete. But to yeah, there's such a we're not gonna go into this realm then, we're gonna stick with this." And I see that a lot, even if you think of, like, in the box gyms. People who are doing strength training and doing the weights are very not likely to head to the cardio machines, and vice versa, and, of course, none of them wanna be stretching, which is a whole other thing that I have some issues with, but, that's not here nor there. But I'd love to speak because, you talk a lot, even in your bio, about as movement as a way to heal. And I'm really curious how powerlifting has helped you navigate through healing and through things like PTSD.
Yeah, so for folks that don't know, I have PTSD. I'm not ashamed to talk about it. I've talked about it on my Instagram before, but it is something that I will never have leave my body. And I have had so much time sitting in an office with my psychologist working on it, and I'm at a really good place in my life, but a lot of that came from powerlifting. One of the biggest things for me is powerlifting does not give you the opportunity to think. And I think the thing about PTSD is you're always thinking. There's always that flashback to the things that have happened to you. There's always that return to the moments where the trauma happened. And you don't get that luxury almost with powerlifting about anything. You can't think. You are just under this bar that is a lot of weight and you have to think about breathing and just doing the lift.
Yeah.
And it's almost meditative. Like, I can't meditate at all to save my life. I've never been able to do it, but it is like that moment where I can just take a breath and be present in my body and have that mind body connection that's not always there, that is a lot of times disconnected. And that was really something that helped me feel powerful, and I had the autonomy in my body for the first time ever. I think too, with the form of PTSD I have, like, body autonomy was one of the biggest things I had felt I had lost, and I was getting it back. And since then I feel really just strong. I feel like the person that the me that was traumatized needed to have in that moment too. Strong, powerful, unabashedly myself, not caring about what others think, just wanting to do the right thing. And, having those moments of mind body connection that are just I don't have a choice helped me so much.
I love that. So, of course, with flexibility training, there is a large component of mind body connection because it's similar in the way powerlifting is, where you have to really be focusing on the movement, on how your body is reacting to certain things. Of course, with flexibility training, you're sometimes using weights, but not usually. So, I actually didn't really consider that with powerlifting, but it makes sense. Like, you have to focus that you're holding, this bar and how much weight on top of it, and, like, you obviously don't wanna injure yourself, you don't want it to, like, fall back. You don't wanna have to your spotter holding all this weight because 'cause you're just like, somewhere else. So, yeah, to really hone your focus in on your breathing and how you're feeling and to create that it is kind of a mindfulness practice, like you said, like meditative, and I really love that because I did not consider that at all.
I do think it's kinda why a lot of people see it as, like, therapy almost, which it's not, like, let me be clear, powerlifting is not therapy, but it's a toolbox thing that you can keep with you when you're struggling to help you kinda get along the path of healing. It kinda keeps you on a really healthy path rather than diverting and going somewhere dark, right? But it's not therapy, it's just that toolbox thing that your therapist hopes you're using when you're not in their chair, right?
Yeah, that can be great. I love that. And you also spoke previously about the powerlifting community and how it's kind of helped you too. And what role has the powerlifting community played in your healing and growth?
Oh, they've saved me from myself, honestly. I was like the same person who got me into powerlifting was not a good person to me overall. And the powerlifting community recognized that before I could. They see you all the time in the gym and they were talking to me and helping me grow into the person they know I could be, while also saying we care about your safety, we care about your mental health, we care about your overall wellness. And so they've been through bad breakups. They've been with me through navigating what's life after getting out of a situation that's not healthy like that. But also it's community, it's also making sure that you're okay other times. My dad just passed away a couple months ago. And the two communities that were with me the most were the powerlifting community and the pole community. Checking in with you, come lift with us, come go have a meal with us. Here's $20, go order something in. Don't think about anything. Like think about yourself. Even at nationals earlier this month, folks were coming up to me and hugging me and saying, "Hey, I know you're going through something and we've all been through something in this room. Just know that we're here for you. If you need to cry, if you need to just get a hug." And it just shows the kind of people that are drawn to these movements, right? They're people who have also suffered something maybe or are dealing with something big, and they're finding ways to connect with their minds and bodies, but also community. And it's really lovely.
I absolutely adore that, and I think that I'm so happy for you to be a part of a community like that because it sounds so supportive, so empowering. And, even when I watch videos of like how you were at nationals or other people I follow who do powerlifting, where, you see everyone just, it's basically, from an outside view, they're just screaming and yelling at you. But it's like, it's encouraging to keep you going, to keep pushing. And I think there's definitely a parallel between lifting heavy things mentally and emotionally versus lifting heavy things physically. But, one of those things you do have to do it alone often. But the other one, you got a community who is like cheering you on, supporting you, like will slap you on the back is a good job. Like they will be there for you. And it seems like they will be there for you outside of the powerlifting too, which I think is so beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people were offering to help me move things out. When I moved in with my now husband, the powerlifting community was like, "Where's your furniture? We've got this for you." And it was just so strange to be part of a community that like almost anticipated what you needed.
Yeah.
But I think it's because we think about our volunteers. Our sport runs on volunteers, so you anticipate what they need. Food, support, water, energy drinks. And so I think that kind of carries over into a lot of the other things in life, right?
I think that's beautiful because, yeah, it really just shows like the level of compassion people are having and bringing to each other. Because of course, like, it takes a village for many things, and this is one of them. And I just think I don't even have a better word. It is beautiful. I love that so much.
It's honestly the best thing ever. And I mean, me being a very proud half Filipina woman, community is everything, even if I struggle with it myself. So to see it in other places and in other sports and movements and communities, love it.
Yeah, that's so great. On the topic of hard days, I definitely think community is going to play a part of this answer, but how do you approach movement on the hard days when it doesn't really feel accessible to you?
I had a hard day yesterday and I dragged myself to our pole studio. And I think movement is that thing that gets you out of bed, that at least gets you trying to seek something to help, like maybe at least stabilize you. I do find that on the hardest days, I don't want to move. I don't want to get out of bed, but I know that it brings levity. You put some music on, I'm a firm believer of even on your worst days, there will be a song that gets you moving, whether it's like head banging or like slinkiness or just like shaking the head. There's always something there. And I believe that, you put your music on and you go lift a weight or you go just shake your butt a little bit. I think movement just brings a little bit of that endorphins. It really brings us to a place where at least we're stable. At least we
Yeah.
have like a grasp on why we're having a hard day, or at least we can like maybe almost process it a little bit. Like it helps you chip away at that iceberg of this big, maybe sad, scary, angry, inducing thing.
It kinda gives you that perspective of like, okay, it's not as big and scary and bad as I originally thought. Or it gives you, time to just kind of reflect on it and how can I move forward in this situation? And I think even at the worst of times, it gives you a moment to forget if that's what you need. Like it gives you a moment to focus on what you're doing. Like again, if we're looking at something like mindfulness, like it be powerlifting or flexibility training, like anything where you take the time to focus on your breath really. It gives you a moment to be like, okay, I'm not gonna focus on this right now. It will be there when I get back, but I'm gonna have a different mindset or a different view of the world when I come back to it. And maybe not. Maybe I do just have to call it a day and lie back down, which is totally fine. It happens. But it can sometimes give us that different perspective on things that are going on, which I do love.
Oh,
So that's
100%. Oh, sorry. Yeah, 100%. Like, again, going kind of back to like I losing my dad, the one thing that kept me like just keeping like my thoughts clear and at least able to do things as things came up was movement. Going for walks, even going to the hotel gym and just like doing a couple bicep curls and like, okay, I can handle the paperwork next, or I can start moving things for my mom. I really think that movement, even in tiny little ways, is what
Mhm.
keeps us going in the hardest of times. And again, community, like, it's the easy answer, but it's also the truest answer because, people are like, "Do you wanna go for a walk?" I'm like, No, I don't want to, I'm gonna cry." That's what it's there for, right? Cry and
Yeah,
go for a walk. Cry while you're dancing around a pole. Cry after you finished a set at when you were lifting because you don't wanna drop the weights on yourself.
yeah.
I think movement allows us to feel.
Mm, definitely. And I love that so much. And just the idea of when you're saying community, I do think of how many times where I'm like, I don't want to do anything. I want to just like, cry in bed, close the blinds. That's it. That's my whole day. And that's when someone comes out, it's like, you know, I brought you a snack and you can have it if you want. Oh, do you want to go for a walk? No? Okay. Let me know if you want to later. And maybe I don't, but then they'll reach out and be like, are you sure? And I'll be like, okay, you know what? Maybe I do. I'm like, I had my snack. I decided, you know what? I should. And, in the end, it does. Like, walking for me is one of those things where that is maybe the first movement I discovered that is joyful, in the sense where I was like, I want to say maybe 13 or something. And I was feeling awful and terrible. I don't even remember why. But for some reason, everyone was like, go for a walk. And I did. And I was like smiling to myself on my walk. I'm like, this is weird. What am I But I was like, "Wait, no, this was nice, actually, I feel better now, I feel clearer and just, like, more focused on what I wanna focus on, which can be really great, and community can help you push forward in that, which I love."
Me too.
So, has your relationship with your body changed through the lifting and the dancing?
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So when I first started getting into these 2 movements, I like to call them, I was at a really terrible place with, like, my body. It was probably one of the smallest I've ever been as well, and I really struggled with that. Because I mean, when you look at people in media, when you look at people that are, like, at high level of, like, everything, they're so tiny and, like, they've got abs, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but at the same point, the pressure to be that is really great. And so I struggled so much. And as I started lifting, especially, I did start to notice that I was gaining weight, mostly muscle, but I was eating a lot more. I wasn't doing as much cardio, even with the pole. And I was gaining weight. And that was a struggle for me because I had spent so much of my life, wanting to be smaller, wanting to kind of take up less space. And, like you struggle with that. And of course, trying to maintain a weight class because with powerlifting, you've got the weight classes. I didn't wanna be a super heavyweight as they call them. I didn't wanna be in the open weight category. And, like, I remember just being so defeated and, like, I'm gonna diet down. And I had one, like, year where I tried to go down a weight class in, like, about 5 months. And I lost, like, 45 pounds, and I remember coming out of it and thinking, "This was the stupidest thing ever, my poor body." And I've started to realize that, my ability to move is not predicated on my body weight. It's not predicated on how small or bigger I am. It's about, did I take care of my body? Am I actually listening to my body when it says like, hey, like, you're not eating the way that fuels me, and I'm gonna give you some cues to remind you that you're not. I'm feeling sluggish. What did I do? Like, I'm actually now listening to my body and its needs. And I know that sometimes people are like, "Well, that means you have to cut weight." I'm like, "I don't think it does." I think if your body is saying, "Hey, like, I just don't feel great right now. I want you to focus on walking," and the weight loss happens, cool. But you're listening to your body in that. You're allowing your body to accurately tell you what it needs from you. And that's been my biggest thing is what do you need? What does my meat sack need to like actually be good? And it's been walking. It's been enjoying flow around the pole rather than just strictly aerials, though it is craving the aerials again. It's telling me that it wants to lift heavy weights. And none of that's been you need to lose weight. None of that's been you need to be like this level or this level. It's just like listening to it and appreciating it. And that love that I give to it, it's giving me back. And how successful I've been with everything and how more, I guess, like skilled I've been with things. I love that. It's been such a 180 on what I look at with my body now. I don't like I do have to weigh myself for powerlifting because there's numbers still there and I still have to be mindful of that number because it does change our approaches with competitions. But now it's in a healthy way of like it's a number. It doesn't have any meaning to it other than it's a number. And if it goes down or up, as long as I know why it is and I'm mindful that that's not a negative thing, it's so different.
Yeah.
And I know people are so scared to talk about weight too. Not
Yeah.
because like, weight is non-existent, but it has so much negativity to it, and
Yeah.
I can't wait for us to start seeing it as, like, a number that helps us, keep mindfulness of our body. It's just a guidance for us, not like a, strict thing.
Yeah. I love that. And, I was looking at a post online in some thread and they were talking about the BMI.
Ugh,
And of course, they were going with it. And as many of us know, the BMI is rooted in racism, fat phobia, and like a lot of different things. And it's just generally wrong. Like it's not meant for what it's currently used for. And I do think, like, because the BMI is so linked to weight currently,
yeah.
is there comes a lot of, like, stigma and stereotypes, because we kinda put the 2 and 2 together. But I do believe, yeah, like, I think looking at the number on a scale as a weight, that is a neutral thing.
Hmm,
Because, again, our bodies are not negative or positive things in the world, they are just existing. And it's the same as the number on the scale. It's something that exists, it's a number, and I think it's worth keeping mind of it in sense of for our doctors and our own sake, something to have, and for in your case, for powerlifting. But otherwise, it doesn't need to hold the weight that a lot of people put onto it. I do really believe, like, this is a neutral thing, and I think it takes time to remove that kind of negative connotation with it. I know it took me a long time, especially as a plus size person, but I think it's worth working towards that to kind of say, okay, like this is a number that doesn't matter if it changes, it changes. That's how our bodies are. Our weight does fluctuate every single day. It's the same way our muscles and how strong or how flexible we are will fluctuate every day depending on so many different factors like what we ate, how much we've been drinking water, how we slept, our stress levels, all these different things. So of course it will fluctuate, and that's why I don't think we should look at the scale constantly.
yeah.
But I think it's worth recognizing it. It is a neutral thing, and that's what it is. That's it. It's just neutral.
Well, it's data, right? Like, I think people see it as, like, data, and they give data these, like, attributes that don't exist. It is literally just a number to ascribe something to give it context, right? Or I guess to give it, like, some sort of, like, number that we can use qualitatively, right? And
Mhm.
and my doctor, I love my doctor. He always tells me, he's like, "I don't care about the number, I care about why the number is the way it is," right? And I thought that was really interesting because he's like, "I look at your number, and if that number changes significantly one way or the other, that's something that I can say, oh, the data is suggesting a trend. What is that trend? Why is it happening? Is it and that you can assign some actual, like, is that a good trend? Is that a bad trend? Is that something we can help you with?" And that's the best thing ever because now I look at the number, I'm like, "Oh, I noticed it went up. Interesting." Like, "Oh,
Yeah.
maybe I'm actually reacting to a food that I ate," like,
Yeah.
and I think that's how people should start looking at it. Like, it's gonna fluctuate so much. I will go up 10 pounds in a day. Like, really, like, if I drink enough water, if I eat the food that my tummy does not like, I will go up 10 pounds. Who cares?
Yeah.
But then I
Right?
know that.
Yeah. I honestly love that you kind of describe it as data because it is that. And all I can think is I'm not good at understanding data, but I love tracking data. The amount I like, if you look at my business, like my Notion account on my business side, it's just charts on charts of me like this number, this date, this thing. And it's like the data. And I will get someone else to kind of interpret it and say, these are the trends. But I love thinking of it like that because that's what it is. It is data. And I love that your doctor is suggesting like why that number is what it is because, if it does shift one direction or not, and it's, a fairly like quick shift versus a gradual, like I think that is worth noting. So I think that's great. I would love to shift a little bit on to accessibility. So, of course, you kind of talk about the toxic fitness industry a little bit, which I unfortunately know too much about too. But I would love to know for you in the terms of powerlifting and pole dancing, what changes would you love to see in those communities to make them more accessible to more people?
So, I'll start with powerlifting because it's one of the sports that I'm finding is remarkably accessible. I'm always so shocked at, like, everything popping up because I don't think about it, because I'm not disabled in ways that I would be aware of these things. So, like, for instance, there's blind powerlifting, Special Olympics, which I'm so excited I get to be a part of in July, I think it is. I get to be one of the refs, so I'm gonna go through the training for that. Really
Love
stoked.
that.
Paralympics, the powerlifting is in Paralympics with bench press, and it just goes on and on to the point where I'm like, "This is awesome." And
Yeah.
as the Olympic stream powerlifting, as I like to say, the closest thing to it, trying to include that, there's still stuff in the rule book that explains, "Hey, if you have someone who's an amputee, if someone's wearing a brace, here's what you do." So, for powerlifting, I'm really excited to see how it's growing. It's constantly growing, so it's hard to keep a pin in all of that to make sure you know, but when I get pulled in, when I'm able to participate in it, I learn so much. That being said, it's been in the news quite a bit. Obviously, trans folks.
Yeah.
I'm not always the biggest fan of some of the movements to try to include trans people. I think it should be without question. I've competed against trans lifters. They've really motivated me to lift heavier. Like, I'm very much like, I can't wait to see where the changes are. I know it's in a very difficult, sensitive time right now, but crossing the fingers. Like, I really just want to see changes with that, with gender, with how we approach all of that. But it's just a very, very sensitive time. It's calmed down a little bit. There are bandages to the approach to kind of prevent people from getting harassed, getting doxxed, all that stuff. Like, I can't believe
Right.
it's at that level, but I'm just like, I want to see this not be a non-issue, because for the lifters,
Mm.
it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely see that a lot with many different sports and different types of fitness and movement, where it's usually not the issue with the athletes themselves, it's with the governing bodies, which I think is ridiculous. Because again, weren't I would like to think that the people who are part of the governing bodies were also once, if not still, athletes. But why? I don't know. I think it's a very tricky topic only because I'm not too well versed in it. But I do believe, like, yes, trans people should be able to compete easily without question, without issue in the category that they belong to. Like, I don't think I think I think it's becoming too much of an issue. Like, it's being blown out of proportion in that way.
100%.
Like, yeah, I think it's just kind of silly in that way. Like, what do you mean they can't? Why not? Like, if someone is claiming to be a woman and, doing whatever feels right to them to present and feel that way, let them also compete in that category. Like, again, like, because I think it's it's just such a non-issue to me because I think of the trans community as a whole, as a percentage, is very small, very tiny in the world. And of course, they are the ones currently being picked on by certain government people. And it's almost as using them as a scapegoat. And I think it's utterly ridiculous. I think you should just let them live, let them do what they feel comfortable doing, whether it be being, if they want to be an athlete, let them be an athlete. Like, why are we telling them, oh, I don't know about that? Like, it's just so odd to me. And so it's something I don't understand. And I don't think I want to understand where they're coming from to ban that. So, or not even ban it, but even just like let people create harassment towards these people. And I think it's just ridiculous. But I do love how powerlifting has and seems to be becoming even more inclusive than what you were saying. I didn't even know it was a part of the Paralympics or the Special Olympics, so I really think that is great and so excited for you to be a ref for it. That's so much
I'm
fun.
so
I
excited.
can't wait. I bet. I cannot wait to see all that stuff because I know you'll be posting about it, I'm sure. And what do you think about pole dancing? Like, I also have that pole dancing background. Not that I do it too much anymore, but I I always thought pole dancing was inclusive, but I kind of have my own thoughts. But I'd love to hear yours. Like, is there something the pole dance community or pole dance studios could do to be more inclusive?
Oh my goodness. I Where do I begin? I think and if you have kind of like perused my social media, I'm part of the Central Edmonton Aerial Performers. Oh gosh, CPAC. I'm just gonna say CPAC because
Yeah.
I can never get acronyms right. But it was created because we were super duper aware of some of the pillars of oppression that come from pole that we were seeing in places that we were before. And I do unfortunately believe pole has a long way to go. Not only just inclusiveness, like, gender, culture, you know, race, all of those things, but also accessibility. I do find a lot of pole studios don't see the value of having training to learn how to modify moves. They don't work with different size bodies. Plus size pole dancers exist. I'm kind of in that category where I have a bigger body, and so for me, having someone behind me saying, "Hey, you're gonna struggle with that movement, let's change it so that your body works with that." It's just an issue where it's been so predominantly, able-bodied, smaller, usually gymnast or like some sort of like flexibility background. And it's only more recently opened up. But with that,
Mm.
there's a lot of growing pains. And I've had the express pleasure of meeting with so many pole stars in the last little bit and talking to them about and saying, I want to take your your classes. I want to show up to your workshops. I'm really thankful you have things there for me to do. Recently, I got to host Natasha Wang in my house, and we had so many wonderful conversations about, making room for folks that are bigger bodied, are
Yeah.
maybe not able bodied in the same way. Like, how do you work around injuries? How do you work around folks that maybe are in a wheelchair? All those little things, I'm so happy to hear our instructors talk about, hear the folks in the studio talk about, because it's a prevalent issue that it's not, that they kinda get swept under the rug. Even our studio, we're so critical of it because we have a couple steps walking into the studio. So as much as we want it to be fully accessible, we still have to contend with that, and trying to find space somewhere else that is accessible is way out of our budget. So keeping that in mind is half that battle, and I think getting the pole, like, community as a whole to get to that point is it's
Yeah.
still difficult, right?
Definitely, and I've definitely witnessed the growing pains in my own city with the different studios I used to go to, and I immediately thought of the stairs. Every pole studio in Toronto, at least the ones I've been to, you have to go up a full flight of stairs, there's no elevator, and it's like,
No.
okay, so anyone who has any type of mobility limitations are gonna have struggles with that. But I do think, yeah, especially when it comes to modifications and variations, that is something even when I was going through the instructor training to be a pole dance instructor, there was nothing on variations. It was this huge booklet this studio created, and there was absolutely 0 things on variations. And I remember I was looking through it and I was like, what do you mean there's nothing? Oh. So even as a plus size person myself, I'm gonna tell the other plus size person to just like wait. Like, what are we gonna do then? And I do think, yeah, there's a lot of different ways. Like, I think also even in the terms that pole dancing does come from sex work.
Mhm.
And there is a large population of sex workers who are in pole dance pole dancing as a whole. Like we have to think of strip clubs even. And, that's being erased a lot of times from these pole dance studios that are calling themselves just a sport, not anything else. And like they're very what is the word I'm looking at? Like sex worker washing, I guess.
Culture vulture.
To get culture vulture, yes. That's exactly it. And, they're not acknowledging the history from where the sport is coming from.
It's it I can't stand that. I think that, like, SWERFs, right? The sex worker,
Yeah.
they love to
Yeah.
exclude them, right? And I'm so glad that our studio is like, "No, like, pole comes
Yeah.
from sex workers. We have
Yeah.
to work to be that ally, that space that includes them, that teaches students that come through that door that sex workers are welcome here, and if you don't like that, get out or learn."
Yeah.
And I think that's been really good. We do host a lot of workshops by sex workers, like, especially I find lap dancing. Lap dancing
Mhm.
should be taught by a sex worker. Stripping should
Yeah.
be taught by a sex worker because that is their job. They understand that. They understand the complexities of that. It's theirs, not ours to take and culture vulture and tear apart and turn into this sanitized version of it because it's not. And I forever sex it's for sex workers by sex workers. And,
Yeah.
like, I hope one day that our board can have a sex worker on there to kinda help guide us, and we're really lucky to have those connections to keep us on the straight and
Yeah.
narrow path on that. So I'm thankful for the hard work they put into it because it is work. It really is.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And I love just as a whole what CPAC is doing because I do remember when it first started up. And I was like, "I wanna go to Edmonton," and
Yes.
of course, I don't no offense, I'm not doing that. But, maybe one day I might just I'm just kind of, the whole province, I'm like,
Yep.
"I can just go to Vancouver, there's more mountains."
I hear
Me being, like, biased against just the whole province, but one day I will come by. I truly will because I do love every time I see you at CPAC or just like the CPAC profile come up on my feed, just seeing what's happening there because I do love what you and everyone there is creating. And, on the topic of the pole dancing and, of course, sex workers, that pole dancing is intrinsically and deeply connected to self expression and reclaiming sexuality. Has that been a part of your experience, and how has it kinda changed your views?
like, going into pole, I was super sex negative. I come from Northern Alberta, of course, like, a little bit of hate to some of the rural populations because of some of the hate that comes from it and some of the rigidity and the conservatism that's there. And of course with PTSD, I was very sex negative and very much like I'm going to save myself for marriage kind of thing. So like coming into a place where I started to learn that like why do you care? Like and it really started to make me question like my values around sex. It made me question my sexuality even and now I'm happily bi. I'm super happy like I'm so glad that I had that opportunity. But in this whole process of healing with my PTSD, I've really like leaned into the sexuality side of pole because it really drew something hidden inside me where powerlifting brought me my autonomy, pole dancing brought me my sexuality and my sensuality and that reclamation of feeling sexy. I mean, it is kind of a little stereotypical, honestly. Like you go into pole class, you find that, but it's because sex workers have shown us what it does. Like I can look to a sex worker and be like, my goodness, I understand why it's hard work, but I also understand, like, what you're presenting out there, what people are enjoying. I enjoy it, and I'm finally, like, learning how to do that in my own way that honors that and respects that. So much even that I did a master's degree that ended with me doing a project about sexuality and health in Canada and the education system, and I just finished my postgraduate cert in sex education. It's not only just that sensuality and that sexuality, but it's also exploring gender and gender norms and flipping some of the taboos or maybe some of those long-held beliefs. You can play a character, and when you walk out of that room, you're back to yourself. You get to maybe
Mm.
don something else that maybe you don't get to have at a daily basis or a weekly basis. I love that about it. I love how it plays into, like, I mean, this is me, my nerd side coming out, like the BDSM kink tropes as well. I think, again, yay sex workers, thank you for bringing this and giving life to it. And I'm so glad to explore that because there's so many interesting things about human sexuality that whole kind of brings together in this beautiful package. And so for me, it was like all of these things happening all at once. It's changed the way I view sexuality as a whole. It's made me feel way more reconnected to that side of me and understand the importance and what it brings to my personality. And it's just fun. It's fun to realize that humans were sexual beings. And it's okay. And no one else in the government can tell us otherwise because they can't change human nature.
Yeah, so true. I love that so much, and it makes me honestly wanna get my pool out of storage. I don't know how much I really trust this 70-plus-year-old house and their ceilings, but maybe I just want to get back into it because I do love all of that. What is something you would share with someone who's maybe, hesitant to go into pole dancing or powerlifting? What kind of encouragement would you bring to someone who's like, "I wanna go, but I don't know."
You're never gonna be ready. I think that was the biggest thing I ever learned, especially about, like, competitions or even just, like, performing, is you're never gonna be ready. You're never gonna feel 100% settled. If you do, something is completely wrong or you're on something. Because even, like, to this day, like, competing, I never feel ready. But even going to the gym, I never feel ready. Like, I'm always hesitating a little bit because I'm nervous, and if you just go, you're gonna find if it's for you or not right away, and it's okay if it's not. I'm very much a proponent of try new things, and if you love it, you're gonna love it right off the bat. You know, like, don't force
Yeah,
yourself to like something because it's not gonna stick. You're not gonna keep with it, or if you do, you're gonna be miserable.
so true. I definitely agree with that. I'd love to know, and I have to ask because you're also wearing the cat ear headphones. What is your current go-to game when you're streaming, and how is your aim
Oh my
these
gosh.
days?
So I've got the little Nessies there. I'm a huge Apex Legends fan. I got into it because my partner is a huge Titanfall fan. It's the same universe, and I love Titanfall too. I just got a new shirt in the mail this morning. I thrifted it. I'm huge about it. I think I'm gonna go on a little tangent here. Apex Legends is huge for having a diverse range of characters, diverse gender presentations, diverse sexualities. It's like actual real people in a way. Like it presents a population of different body types, different body shapes. I love that the character backgrounds are great. So of course that's gonna pull me in anyway. But they're fun, they have a lot of fun, and it's a battle royale, so, like, you
Yes.
die, you go back into it. My aim is so much better these days, I still suck, like, I'm the first person to say I'm still stuck in, like, bronze. I'm never gonna be ranked high, but I love it. I think there's so much good community out there. I stream, people show up, and they're like, "You suck." I'm like, "Thanks," and they're like, "Why are you happy about this?" I'm like, "'Cause, like, I claim my aim.
Yeah, and I truly believe, like, no matter how bad or mediocre you may be at something, if you're enjoying it,
Who cares?"
then why yeah, who cares? Just keep doing it. Like, as long as it's fun for you, that's what matters.
100%. Enjoy what you do and have fun with it, and no one can say different, right?
Yes, I love that so much. Well, Lainey, thank you so much for joining me today for the Body Talks. If people wanna learn more about you, where can they find
Well,
you?
I'm mostly on Instagram under Mint Owls, not mini towels, Mint Owls. If you wanna see me game and be just absolutely having a blast, Lanykins is my Twitch. But yeah, I also have a link tree in my bio on Instagram, and I'm super happy to answer questions if you wanna prod a little bit deeper.
Yeah, and of course, I will have all that listed in the show notes. I do have one final question. What's an affirmation or a gentle reminder that you could share that can help you and help everyone listening stay compassionate with yourself?
Oh, my favorite one, it's my go-to almost every day is, "I love my body and I love what it does for me in the gym, out of the gym, daily, when I sleep."
Oof, I love that. I'm so happy you were able to join me
Thank you.
today. Oh my gosh, this was a great conversation. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone listening and watching and for tuning in to the Body Talks. Remember to drink some water, get some rest, and do something kind for your body today. And I will catch you on the next one.